Hey, Jim Brown, welcome. This is the Life After Ministry podcast. Good to have you here.
So good to be with you, Matt. I'm eager for our conversation.
Yeah, so we had some introductions here. We've had a conversation, and I love the crossover with what you're doing in the business space, but how it also relates to ministry leaders. So I want to make sure that people from the get-go, they don't tune out and tune off and say, well, he's writing some business books. It's not really applicable to me, right?
This is totally applicable. Let me explain more the bigger picture, Matt. I feel, goodness, it's got to be 35 years ago, an assignment from God to work and speak to business leaders, to go through doors that would allow me to build relationships with business leaders and create conversations, relationships, so that we could bring Christ into the conversation with people who likely wouldn't go through the door of a church.
Mm.
But meanwhile, I love the church. I'm a board member of my church and very committed to that as the center of my life. So whatever we can do to help churches, we're all about that. And certainly, the book is written specifically to business leaders, but completely applicable to church leaders, to Christian leaders of all organizations. In fact, Matt, I've even got a companion guide. We haven't really gone public with this, but if you're interested, we can figure out how to make this available to your listeners if they're interested, which we call it Leading a Healthy Church. And it is exactly how to use the imperfect CEO and the principles in it and apply it in a church context.
Yeah, so let's get into it because today, on the day of the release here, your book is coming out. And the book is called The Imperfect CEO. And
Yes.
so I want to work through that. You started to notice this is not your first book. So let's rewind the tape just a little bit on your first book. And there's also something you have a little bit of this. You pay attention to things that are not perfect. Give me a little background and some of the friction that you saw that said, I want to address this.
Yeah, the first book is called The Imperfect Board Member. And the idea here is that we just, in the Western world especially, have this crazy pressure that we're supposed to be perfect. People think that, oh, if I'm going to be a good leader, people are expecting me to be perfect. If I'm going to be a good board member, I guess I better show up with, all the answers. And it's not possible. The truth is, no one is perfect except Jesus. And we just need to embrace our imperfection, which I'm not saying is a license to stagnate.
Right.
Rather, it's a recognition that God has given each of us certain gifts, but He actually, by design, has created a world where we need others so that we can all be our best. That's certainly true in a boardroom. If we want to be a great board, we need to figure out, so what does each person around the table bring that when we put it all together, it all complements the rest and is wonderful. But that's also true in leading an organization. The CEO, who is the hero, is the wrong picture. The right picture is that the CEO is humble enough to recognize God's given them strengths and weaknesses, and they need other people around them to bring strengths that cover their weaknesses. That's when we can be a great team and a great organization.
So looking back over the last 20 years, tens of thousands of copies sold for the imperfect board member. What have you seen that's played out of that kind of led into this new iteration of not just looking at the board and how that functions, but how now, as we have an imperfect CEO, how do those two come together, collide? I mean, it's really, you're encouraging people to drop the fig leaf and not have to claim that you are the five-tool player, you got it all together, that actually there is some strength in acknowledging weakness.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing for me, Matt, was a recognition that the times have been changing for certainly for 10 years, probably for longer than that. And there were quite a few founders of organizations, companies, and churches that I've worked with that were frustrated because the things that they had found had made them successful were no longer working. And it was irritating to them. It was irritating that they couldn't just declare, here's the goal, here's what we're going to do, and everybody marches along behind them. No, that doesn't actually work anymore. Today, we
Mm.
have to create a conversation and invite people into the journey of figuring out where we're going so that they can own the trip rather than just be obedient to the leader. So, yes, I will also humbly admit, Matt, it was happening in my own life. There are a lot of things that building this business that I've been leading for 32 years now is just it's I have to do it very differently. People do not respond like they used to respond. And as a imperfect leader, I have to keep learning more about myself and about other people and how to interact with them in a way that's going to work. Here's a line that has had to really take root in my spirit. I have to be more focused on the impact that I'm having on people than the intent that I had for it. So,
Mm.
whatever I said or whatever I did, I've got a very reasonable intention. That's why I did it. But they didn't hear it the way I meant it, or that it didn't feel the way that I was trying to project. And rather than me being irritated that they're not getting it, I have to take responsibility that I'm not delivering it the way that works for them. And a good leader is more committed to the outcome of the effort than to the intention of the effort.
It feels like, I grew up with the notion that the boss said it, you've gotta do it, right? And there was
Yeah,
a different structure, but what's your and really, like, it's who in that relationship has to be more flexible. If this is what the boss asks for, then you've got to bend and twist and break until you've fulfilled whatever it is that they're asking for. You're almost saying that what we're asking for is that as a leader, you are now having to be exerting a little bit more of that flexibility to be able to communicate and lead your team in a different way.
a lot more. It used to be that being a confident leader, standing at the front of the room, declaring, "Hey, this is the real world. Here's where we're at, the state of our nation. Here's what we're going to do." That doesn't help people. People are tired, especially people in the 20s and 30s. They're tired of listening to leaders who claim to have the answers. Believe it or not, what they are really looking for is that leaders know the right questions. And a more effective CEO these days, Matt, is going to say, well, you probably are aware that we are living in changing times, and what used to work in this business isn't working as well. So we've been asking some important questions like who are our target customers, and what do I need to do to make them believe that we could help them? What are they looking for? Anyways, listing some questions that starts to resonate with the listeners because they've been thinking about the same questions.
Mm.
And if they see, oh, you're not missing the questions, that actually makes them more confident about the future than in you standing there saying you have the answers. It's like things have completely flipped. Um, Instead of saying, I know what we're going to do, it's absolutely about we and an invitation for people to be a part of the we. Come and join us. I should
Is the
stop.
outcome of all of this, though, it feels like we're trying to get better relationship between the boss and the employees, the team around that leader. Um, it and so you could create a better culture, a better workplace. It feels good, it feels better. Is that helping or hurting the bottom line?
Yeah. Let's go a little bit deeper here. We need to recognize that if we are leading something, our job is leadership. And that means it's all about people. We used to allow ourselves to think that it's all about results. We're just interested in the outcomes and the people just have to do what needs to be done. No, if I've got 20 people that work for me or 20,000 people that work for me, the outcome of that is going to be more dependent on how effectively those people feel empowered to be the best they can be and bring their best to their role than me bringing my best. I could have been the best salesperson and I got promoted to be the CEO because I was the rainmaker. Okay, but that is not your job anymore. Stop it. You need to be helping the next rainmaker and everyone else do the part that they have to do. It's about creating a space where people feel that what they're doing matters in the world, it's bigger than them, that they have something that they can bring that is valuable and appreciated, that they have ideas that are helpful and welcome. And when all of that happens, then they start to see results, progress being evident in the organization. Then they start to believe that they are a part of something that's working. And there's something magical about that, Matt, that we we are doing this. It means they go home feeling a little, there's a bigger skip in their step. They feel a little better that the day counted and I count. And that's such a different feeling than, sadly, the latest results from Gallup's research is showing that 80% of people working in America do not like their jobs and are not engaged in their work. It should be a horrifying number, Matt. And again, if we're leading, that's on us because we need to be creating the space where they feel valued and appreciated and enabled to be the best people they can be. And that requires a humility and a vulnerability for the leaders to set the culture. Imagine sitting in a room and we're trying to talk about how do we overcome this problem? And the old model is the CEO's got all the answers. So who do you think is supposed to do the talking? The CEO. Everyone thinks the CEO is supposed to talk. But he doesn't want to. He's thinking, no, I got people here. You should have some ideas. What are you thinking? It's it's scary for them to share an answer because it might not be as good as the CEO's.
Hmm.
So the CEO now needs to say, I'm so grateful that this is not all on me and that I've got a team of great people who bring different ways of seeing things and different ideas so that we can put the best ideas in the conversation and figure out the best answers to our problems. So let's start with that. And as soon as somebody shares an answer, we don't have 5 questions that are trying to figure out why that's not the right answer. We are simply encouraging, okay, that's a fresh way of looking at that. Let's build on that. What would we need to do to make this work? And okay, so then the next person feels a little bit more willing to share an idea or ask a question, and then we build on it. There's about 5 positions or stances that I want to encourage leaders to take.
Okay.
I want leaders to be humble and to admit when they have made a mistake. So it might be me saying, gang, I want to just apologize. We've been pounding the path to go down this trail because I believed it was the thing we needed to do, and it's clearly not working for us. That's on me. I'm sorry. We have to figure this out together. Can you appreciate, Matt, that people hear that and they think, really? The boss just said he made a mistake
Hmm.
and he thinks that we should be okay with that? I guess we should because I need him to be okay when I make mistakes. And I know I do. I just don't want to tell anybody about it.
Right.
So admit mistakes, ask for help, apologize, share a little bit about our personal world. There's more. Let's just leave that. That's a good start. These kinds of vulnerabilities are changing how a leader shows up. And that's changing how everyone else is thinking that they're supposed to show up, which changes the whole game.
Give us a framework of how the book is laid out and the change or the transformation that you're hoping that somebody encounters as they go from page one to the very end of the book.
Yeah. Well, first, let me say the book's organized first as a story. So the first half is a fable about a leader who's pulling his hair out because things aren't working. And he works with his lead team to try to sort this out. Also, he also gets some really important help from his wife, which is, I think, an important part of the story as well. Along the way, they discover what we describe as four peaks of the ascent model. So we are beginning with collaborative cultures. A starting place, the center of all of a healthy organization is that we create a collaborative culture where people help each other. Let me tell you a story. This is from a client that I worked with quite a few years ago. It was the Canadian distributor, or not distributor, plant of a global manufacturing company. And they were told by the German head office that they had the highest cost of manufacturing, and if they didn't fix that, they'd get closed down. 700 people would be out of work. And I had the privilege of helping them totally reframe how they were leading so that the leadership team would get together, and they each week they would talk about where are the choke points in our production system. And rather than arguing about why I need more resources in my area, they solved the problems of the biggest choke points, which eventually got to leaders of departments offering people from their department to go and work in a different area because that's where they needed the help.
Yeah.
And even eventually leaders of departments offering part of their budget so that others could get some maintenance done or get some new equipment that would really catapult them forward. 1 year later, Matt, they it ended up that they had the lowest cost of production in their global operations. And I share that because that's the degree of opportunity that every organization faces. That if we would figure out how to really collaborate, oh my goodness, people can do so much more than they're doing now, especially if 80% of the people are coming to work, but they're just showing up. They're not really bringing their best. They're not really doing everything that we could do. They just are getting paid. What if it was the other way? What if 80% were bringing their best ideas and giving their best energy and
Mhm.
thinking about things later at night? Oh, I could have tried this. I'm going to do this tomorrow. And they come with excitement the next day to try to solve this problem. Well, you can go from the highest cost of manufacture or production to the lowest cost of production in 1 year.
Yeah. I'm curious, what do they have in common? If you have a, it might sound like the beginning of a bad joke, but if a CEO, a senior pastor, and a nonprofit executive
Yeah.
walk into a bar, or maybe it's just they go into Arby's
Yeah.
and they all walk in and they all sit down, what might they find surprising that they all have in common?
I think they will be surprised that they would never have called themselves the hero of their company. But if they are honest with themselves, their behavior has told everyone that they should be seen as the hero. They should be seen as the strong, confident, all knowing person. And this actually is even worse in Christian organizations and churches
Hmm.
because we've got this perfect model in our minds. Who's perfect? Jesus. And by the way, he is perfect. I guess that means I'm supposed to be perfect. It's totally erroneous. Jesus never calls us to be perfect.
Hmm.
He invites us to be sanctified on a journey of him perfecting us, but he doesn't shame people for not having it all together. Somehow our culture has put pressure on leaders to be the hero of the organization. And that is causing everyone to hold back, everyone in the organization, hold back their ideas, wait, don't make the leader look bad because then he'll be upset. No, make him look like he's the smartest in the room. And that means we're not getting the best from most people.
It seems like what and we have a lot of these conversations with business leaders, with senior pastors, with these executive directors, presidents of organizations, and, uh, that it seems to be that there's a through line there, that they and it doesn't seem to matter whether it's a $3 million church or it's a multi-million dollar, large organization, is there is just a almost an imposter syndrome that where we feel like, man, I hope nobody realizes or sees how much I feel like a fraud in this position or an
Yeah.
imposter. I hope that they don't find out just how much I don't know. What do you whisper back to that person when they're telling you this?
That you're not supposed to know it all. That your job is actually to create space so that the best ideas get the airtime. That you're the leader of people and you're going to invest in people so that they feel more empowered, more invited to show up with the biggest idea, the hardest question, the worst mistake even, and just admit it so that we can quickly solve the problem. And that as a leader we would get our confidence or our sense of accomplishment out of what the team is making happen and not out of what we are making happen.
Yeah. We're in the transition business. We help people navigate change and try to figure out how do we do this. And one of the things I find myself saying is it really comes from a scene probably 15 years ago in my life where our pastoral staff got away to the mountains for a few days for a pastor's retreat, just a time to retool. We brought in a friend of ours who was leading us through a morning where we were actually he was going to share a couple of devotional thoughts and then send us out into the forest, and we were going to get some time alone with the Lord. So he gave us kind of the devotion. We had some prompts and some prayer ideas that we were going to go through, and he prays and dismisses us, and we all start grabbing our books and our bags and water bottle and everything. And just as we're walking out, he says, "Oh yeah, one more thing." And we all stop, right? It's kind of that Steve Jobs moment. And he said, I want you to resist the need for this moment to have to be perfect. And it just gave us, because I think what we were being sent out, we're thinking like, I'm going to hear, like the Shekinah glory is going to
Yeah,
come
yeah.
down, it's going to fall, and I'm going to have this experience. And sometimes, you make space for that. It doesn't always happen, right? But I find myself talking in some of these conversations with leaders that even in transition seasons, whether it's a succession, whether you have to let somebody go and you want to do it well, but sometimes that's elusive, right? Because we have a human element that's part of it. But I say to people, like, even in transitions, even the best planned, we have the right words, we have the right intent, the right heart, we care about the people, but there's just a move and transition that needs to be made. I just tell them, like, this is not going to be perfect. Relieve yourself of the idea that you have to execute on all of this perfectly, that all of your interactions, your responses, you're going to nail it every single time. And I see like a look of like
Good.
there's a sense of relief for them. How do you see, like, where do we drop the ball? Where does our imperfection show up in the leadership realm, especially in terms of the work of transitioning, whether that's a transition and we're going to move ourselves and we're thinking about our own succession coming out, or whether we have to have difficult conversations with people on our team and say, you're just not in the right seat, or you have a great skill set, but this is not the one for you. Like, how do we do that? And how does the imperfection, how do we capitalize on this idea that we're not going to do it perfect and speak that almost to ourselves?
What you're describing makes me think of Peter. And like clearly he saw himself to be, he's the number one guy. I'm all for Jesus. And he dropped the ball so terribly, but it wasn't the end. And Jesus did not chastise him. Jesus directed him and comforted him. I think a big improvement for us to address these kinds of things is to recognize we are not planning an event, we are working through a process.
Huh.
So we don't need to make this step perfect. We need to trust God to guide us to make the steps and believe that it's going to get us where we need to go. So we have that one conversation and it doesn't land properly, okay, then we go back and we have it again. We apologize and say, you know, I was trying to say something that didn't land, and that I am so sorry.
Hmm.
Can we figure out how to talk this through? And I want you to be sure to understand that I'm for you. I'm not trying to send you to the ditch. I'm trying to help you figure out how to take the next steps so that you're living your best life. This is not me punishing you. This is me making a very uncomfortable decision so that you have a better future. And as you talk about transitions, whether that is from a job that we have, like I've worked with lots of tech companies, and these are rapidly growing companies. So somebody's in this senior team seat, but in the last 2 years, the company has quadrupled. And now instead of there being 3 people in that person's area, there are 35 people.
Yeah.
And it is just way past city. Um, this is not us saying you suck. This is us saying, hey, th- what we need done in this role is not what we needed done when you were the person doing it very well 2 years ago. And we can help you plug in your skills in our organization where it fits for you, or we can help you find an opportunity in another organization. And Matt, you've maybe had enough experience with this. It's very difficult for someone to say, yeah, why don't I go down 2 layers in the company? That will make me feel good and everybody will trust me. Now, usually they need to leave and get a job in a different company. And that's very uncomfortable. I think about Simon Sinek, his book, The Leader Eats Last. He talks about a study that was done that showed that 2/3 of the people at that time don't like their job, but only 16% of them, sorry, I think it was a higher number. Anyways, 16% of them will actually do something about it. More than half of the people will actually put up with a job they don't like.
Hmm.
And what that helped me recognize was that those times when I had made those very uncomfortable, this job is not right for you, we need you to find a different place to work, let us help you. We were doing for them what they wouldn't do for themselves, but needed to do.
Hmm.
And that is leadership. So it's also true when the board of directors says to their pastor, thank you for how you've led the church. We're sensing that your time, your season here has come to an end, and we want to help you move to your next step in your service to God. Whether that's at the age of 50 and there's a bunch more ministry happening full time, or it's at mid and it's moving to not leading a church. It's not, we're going to help you find a smaller church. It's, we're going to help you find the next step in your journey. It's not easy, but boy, I have sadly seen a lot of pastors wait way too long. Like they're 2, 3, 5, 10 years past when they should have left because no one feels courageous enough to point out that this is not working anymore.
It might look and feel like faithfulness. A lot of times, what's underneath that is fear, and that kind of saying that we hear, "I'm going to die in the pulpit," is not a badge of courage. It really, as we dig and look a little bit, further, that there is a fear, or we haven't prepared adequately on the financial front, or even what our successor might look like, and so they're
Yeah.
worthwhile conversations. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. I'm excited to be able to say that today is release day. The book is out. It's May 19th. So if you're listening to this in the future, it's already out through time warp and all of the speed there. But now it's available everywhere. I'm sure you can get Amazon and
Yeah,
Barnes and Noble and all the places that people get books these days. Yeah.
absolutely. Yes. You can also go to a special website we've got set up, imperfectceobook.com. And we have some package deals that bring a whole bunch of other bonuses. If you're looking to buy 10 or 100 books or something, then you get something that none of the stores have to offer. So
Oh,
imperfectceobook.com is another avenue that people can use.
good. So we'll put those links on there. And then I want you to just one more time. You mentioned in the very beginning, but you have a special resource for leaders in the church. What is that?
Yeah, so we have a like a 35 full page PDF of it's like a companion to the Imperfect CEO. We call it Leading a Healthy Church. And this is it's not just for the pastors, it's for the leaders of a church to very specifically apply the principles from the book The Imperfect CEO into the exact church context, which is, as I said, my heart is for the church. I work with lots of pastors. I long, if the best thing in the world, Matt, would be if every church across the country was a healthy church, because everybody's lives would be getting changed. And let's make that happen.
Yeah. So where do we get that PDF? Where can we find that?
Can we figure out how to put it on your website so that it's a download that they can get from you if listeners go to your
Yeah,
site?
you bet. You bet. So
Yeah,
if you go to ministrytransitions.com, we have a tab there that says resources and free downloads, and we'll make sure that we get that up there for everybody to be
good.
able to grab that. And we'll put all the necessary links in there. So, Jim, it's good to meet you and good to have the conversation and get the resources out to people. Thanks for joining us on the Life After Ministry podcast.
Thanks so much, Matt. Bless you.